Again, welcome again to another reading of Vegan Lights Along the Shores of Life. And our article today is From Darkness to Light. Now, with that said, let's get our article up here. From darkness to light. I looked out upon the night. The sky is seen one uniform deep gray blue, but so dark, so heavy, so lowly. The moon is always its beautiful light might never have shined in the heavens so utterly cheerless is the vast expanse above me, so destitute of one ray of brightness. The stars are hidden. Oh, it is so dark, hopeless, and yet so calm, as though it had never known any aspect, as though it needed nothing to throw beauty and warmth into the cold darkness. It knows not its own lack, and so is content to abide unchanged. Only the onlooker who have felt the gladness of the sky blazed with light is saddened and depressed to find it gone, leaving behind such gloom. Even as I looked, my mind described a type of picture. I saw my own heart, only 12 months young that it is today. In the dark sky, I saw its image. For oh, my heart was dark, heavy, dead, when last springing sun was shining, and like the firmaments it was calm and undisturbed, for it knew not its own hopelessness, knew not it was shutting out the light of life, the light which lighteth every man that come into the world. Truly the darkness comprehends it not, knowing not even that it was shining. I remember being examined by the psychoanalyst some years ago. Among other marks of character, I was pronounced to have a strong religious propensity, and wondered within myself, shall I verify the prophecy? I used to have fits of earnestness at long intervals, accepted by hearing a good sermon or reading some record of a noble spent life. At such seasons I felt that I ought to be better, more since, and yet, and know not how to become so. I used to say in my prayers, I asked that I might be forgiven all my sins, and that I might be able to overcome my temper and terrible fire in my poor heart. It was the one evil I had discovered, the only thing I knew within as sin, the only thing that prevented my acceptance with God. I prayed, but I always rose from my knees feeling that I had prayed earnestly enough, and had so could not expect to be answered. For Satan whispered, God would of course hear none but a very earnest prayer. I thought, shall I ever be able to pray as to compel a hearing? Seeing God would not help me, I sought to conquest in my own strength. But though I tried hard, oh so hard, sometimes I only failed miserably. And at last I gave it up in despair, feeling it was hopeless. My burden had been made too heavy for my strength. I had never been meant to bear it entirely. But this was the effort not of grief for offending a loving Father, but for the failing distributed conscience of self-condemnation. I prayed, said under the gospel ministry, I had not a thought of the suspicion of existence, rebellion, and a hate against God. The innate indwelling sin. Truly darkness was on the depth of my soul. The Spirit of God had never moved upon these waters or those waters. I read my Bible nightly as a duty, but with blind eyes, seeing I saw not, and hearing I did not understand. And yet, while suspected not my own lack, nay, was I not better than the so-and-so? I generally went to church 3 times on Sunday. I gave most of my pocket money to the offers. I taught in Sunday school, and I was not an unfrequent communicant. In fact, I was well enough were it not for the unfortunate temper. I was doing my best. Surely God would consider my temptations and have mercy on me at last. Unconsciously, I whispered to my heart, Thou art rich and have need of nothing. Not all that while I was wretched and miserable and poor and blind and naked. My eyes have never lightened on the good, gold tried in fire, and the white remnant, and another righteousness. I inwardly not to, for what I not already clothed. It was truly a dark land grouped in and blackness and darkness, but he had marked me, the great God of heaven, in whose sight every creature that moved is manifested. He had watched the prodigal wandering further and further into the far country, had yearned over him and gone swiftly out to meet him while he was yet a great ways off. I had spent the winter abroad, oh such husk of worldly joy I had fed on, and yet the deceiver had made them very sweet to my taste. I only hungered a very little sometimes, for I knew not, but this sense of one only made me taste more abundantly the one supply I knew. Oh, my Father, I did not even think of thy house of plenty, and yet thou went never for a moment unmindful of thy long missing child. I spent some weeks in London before returning, and one Lord's Day, in fact, put into my hand. Strangely enough, I had never had one given me before, and looking with astonishment at the donor, I put it carelessly into my pocket and forgot it till the evening. When I took it up and gazed at the heading, Faith, I read the line or two, and it put before me very plainly that salvation was and free by grace through faith. Salvation by faith alone. I inwardly cried, "What nonsense!" At taking up the Bible, I found the reference given and read again from the Word itself what I had seen and totally disbelieved in the track. I could hardly believe my eyes, and thinking I was misunderstanding the verse, I went down to a friend whose guest I was and asked had he ever heard of the way of salvation. Of course I have, as is everyone has not. I was astonished, but my self-love was wounded, that having shown my ignorance of the evidently universally known fact that I soon changed the subject and forgot in excitement the making plans for the day. What had before interested me, Satan was ready to pluck away the good seed, but the ground had been thereby prepared for the sowing time, so blessedly near. I left my friend and returned home. The season was just beginning, and I plunged into all its excitement and glad and enjoying it thoroughly. Those poor, meaningless pleasures, how soon they were to fade into the nothingness by reason of the great joy, so soon to fill my empty heart. Quite by chance, I had almost written chance. Can we thus speak, and yet know that the same God who knows the falling of the sparrow, who gave to the wind decrease and to the waves a commandment, is also he who marks out the way we must tread, marking all things work together for good to them that love God. Chance, when it is written, he worketh all things after the counsel of his own will, Ephesians 1:11. Nay, rather, what I say by grace, his love, he let my path cross that of one of his servants, who was to be to me the bearer of the glad tidings. And when all things were ready, bid me to the banquet house, and spread before me his rich rare feast of love. Happy, happy day. Oh, the first breaking up of the darkness within, the mixture of the astonishment and the joy of despair. Was I misunderstanding the king's message offered me a free, full, complete salvation now? That night, that 4 hours, sure my ears deceived me. How could it be a present salvation for me when I had done so few good works? The Spirit work was already begun, and before I left the meeting that night, I saw myself a sinner, undone, condemned, and yet my eyes were too bedimmed with tears of sorrow to behold Jesus, the deliverer, waiting to whisper peace. I was left in the bitterness of spirit, I think 3 days. Oh, those long, weary days of weeping. What a cheerless time it was, for Satan had blinded my eyes, so that I could not see the Son of Righteousness arising within the healings in his wings. My wounded heart so needed. I was occupied only with self, I was struggling to make myself believe, to give myself faith. God's gift, which his royal hand only could bestow. Truly I had read blindly, saved through faith, and that not of yourself. It is a gift of God. At last, in my agony and despair, I felt I must give it all up. And with a heart and brain alike bursting, I lay there and felt I was lost unless Jesus would help me. Then it was that he who had so long stood knocking at the door of my heart, discerning the thoughts before it came forth, entering into consequence. I had a sense of a strange calm on the surging waves of condemnation rolling over my soul, but I hardly understood it. It was not yet perfect peace. Oh, my loving Father, trembling child. Again, he gave the words to his servant to speak in season to me. Being weary and coming out from the Master's presence, he brought his words to me. In the opening, John 5:24, spoke out the message, verily, verily, or surely, surely, I, Jesus, say unto you, he that heareth my words and believe on him that sent me has everlasting life, and shall not come into condemnation, but is passed from death into life. That message opened the floodgates, and a mighty ocean of peace and joy and rejoicing swept into my long divided heart, and I was at rest. I was at rest. And he had kept me rejoicing before him with the joy of his salvation up to the hour, and will keep me till the confrontation of the thence blessed hope of his appearance, when caught up and raptured to meet him in the air. I shall learn a new song, a song through endless ages, the praise of him who loved me and gave himself for me. Well, reader, the same Jesus who sent his messenger to testify to me these things is that moment speaking. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that heareth my word, and believeth on him that sent me has everlasting life. Do you believe on him? Then you have eternal life. For it is written in 1 John 5:11, this is the record that God has given us eternal life, and this life is in his Son. And again, verse 13, these things have I written unto you that believe in the name of the Son of God, that ye may know that you have eternal life. Are you still out of Christ? Or then hear his voice today. Unto you, O man, I call, and my voice is unto the Son of Man. Come unto me, and I will give you rest. For him that cometh to me I will in no wise cast out. LEC. And that ends our reading for today. I hope you listen and you realize that darkness is all around, but light can come into your heart, spiritual light, that you may know and find peace with God. Bye for now.